Have you ever noticed something frustratingly unfair? The loudest person in the room often wins, even when they're wrong. They interrupt, raise their voice, create chaos, and somehow walk away feeling victorious. Meanwhile, the calm, thoughtful person walks away drained, replaying the conversation in their head, wondering what they should have said. Here's the uncomfortable truth most people don't want to hear. You don't lose arguments because you're weak. You lose them because you react. And the moment you react emotionally, you hand over control of your mind. Stoicism saw this problem thousands of years ago. Epictetus made it painfully clear. It's not what happens to us that disturbs us, but how we judge what happens. In other words, the damage isn't caused by the insult, the interruption, or the disrespect. The real damage happens the instant you decide it deserves an emotional response. Think about the people who provoke others for sport. They're not debating to understand. They're not searching for truth. They're trying to dominate the space. Volume becomes their weapon. Chaos becomes their strategy. And when you try to win by explaining yourself louder, longer, or harder, you've already stepped into their arena. Marcus Aurelius offered a different image. He said your inner world should be like a rock against the waves. The waves crash endlessly. The rock doesn't argue with them. It doesn't panic. It doesn't move. That's not weakness. That's unshakable strength. Seneca went even further. He warned that anger is a kind of temporary madness, and madness always regrets what it says. If you've ever walked away from an argument wishing you could take your words back, you already know he was right. This is why the responses we're going to talk about aren't clever comebacks. They're not verbal punches, spoken calmly and precisely. And that distinction matters more than most people realize. Because tone is everything. Say the right words with anger, and they turn into sarcasm. Say them with fear, and they turn into permission for others to keep pushing. But when your voice is steady, your posture relaxed, and your mind grounded, something shifts. The power dynamic changes. The other person feels it, even if they don't understand why. Ask yourself this. What if the goal isn't to win the argument, but to walk away with your dignity, your clarity, and your inner peace intact? That's the kind of power Stoicism teaches. Now let's talk about the first smart reply. And this one is deceptively powerful. I don't need to raise my voice to be right. This line is made for moments when someone keeps cutting you off, talking over you, or trying to win by being louder. You see it in meetings all the time. One person calmly explains an idea, and another jumps in, interrupts, speaks faster, raises their tone, and floods the room with noise. Not because they have better arguments, but because they want control. Most people respond in one of two ways. They either shrink and go quiet, or they explode and match the volume. And both reactions give the loud person exactly what they want. If you stay quiet, they dominate. If you explode, you enter their arena. This sentence is how you refuse both options. I don't need to raise my voice to be right. Calmly and without tension, something subtle happens. You're not attacking them. You're not defending yourself. You're simply drawing a contrast. On one side is emotional noise. On the other is quiet confidence. And everyone in the room can feel the difference. Think about a family argument where one person turns every discussion into a shouting match. They're not trying to understand you. They're trying to overpower you. When you pause, keep your posture relaxed, and deliver this line without anger, you change the temperature of the room. You're signaling, I'm not playing this game. Here's the part most people miss. If the other person keeps yelling after that, they don't look stronger. They look smaller. The volume stops feeling like confidence and starts revealing what it really is. Insecurity, wearing armor. Epictetus warned that a person who can't control their mouth becomes a servant to their impulses. When your voice stays steady under pressure, you demonstrate the opposite. You show that your emotions don't drag you around on a leash, and that's real authority. You're no longer arguing to win. You're setting the standard for how conversations happen around you. You're showing that strength doesn't need volume, intimidation, or chaos. The smartest move isn't saying more. It's saying one calm sentence that exposes the difference between power and noise. And once people feel that difference, they don't forget it. Now let's move to the second smart reply, and this one is quiet, clean, and deeply unsettling for people who rely on insults. The way you're speaking says more about you than it does about me. This line is for moments when the attack isn't on your ideas, but on your dignity. Sarcasm disguised as humor. Little jabs meant to embarrass you in front of others. Comments designed to make you feel small, insecure, or desperate to defend yourself. And that's exactly the trap. Most people react by explaining, justifying, or firing back. They try to prove they're not stupid, not weak, not wrong. But the more you defend, the more you accept the frame that something is wrong with you in the first place. This sentence refuses that frame entirely. When you say, "The way you're speaking says more about you than it does about me," you're not insulting them. You're not asking them to stop. You're not begging for respect. You're holding up a mirror and stepping back. Imagine someone throws a cutting remark at you in a meeting or at a family gathering. They're watching closely. They want a reaction, a blush, anger, a defensive explanation, something they can feed on. Instead, you meet their eyes calmly and deliver this line like a diagnosis, not a fight. And suddenly, the insult loses oxygen. Because insults only work when the target accepts them. The moment you refuse to carry it, the words fall back where they belong, with the speaker. What was meant to humiliate you becomes a quiet revelation of their character. Marcus Aurelius captured this perfectly when he wrote that the best revenge is not to become like the person who wronged you. This isn't about moral superiority, it's about self-protection. You're protecting your inner world from contamination. You can't control what people say about you, but you completely control what you decide it means. If you treat their disrespect as proof that something is wrong with you, you suffer. If you see it as evidence of their inner state, you stay free. And freedom is what unsettles them the most. Because when someone realizes they can't provoke you, can't embarrass you, can't pull you into their emotional chaos, they lose leverage. You don't need to win. You don't need to explain. You just stand there, untouched. That's emotional independence. And to someone who survives on reactions, it's deeply uncomfortable. Now we come to the third reply, and this is the one manipulators hate the most. We can talk when we can do it with respect. This line is not a comeback. It's a boundary, and that's exactly why it's so powerful. Some conversations aren't really conversations at all. They're traps. The other person interrupts you, twists your words, raises their tone, and pushes you emotionally. Then, the moment you react, they point the finger and blame you for the chaos they created. That loop can go on forever if you let it. Most people stay stuck in it because they're afraid that walking away means losing. Manipulators count on that fear. They want you emotionally engaged because an engaged target is easier to control. This sentence breaks the loop instantly. When you say, "We can talk when we can do it with respect," you're not arguing about the topic anymore. You're changing the rules of the interaction itself. The conversation is no longer about who's right. It's about whether the conversation even gets to continue. Imagine you're discussing something important, and the other person starts attacking your tone, your motives, your personality. They interrupt every sentence. They escalate. They want you to chase them, defend yourself, explain, justify, plead. That's their terrain. Instead, you stop, you breathe, your voice stays even. And you say this one line. Now watch what happens. Either they adjust their behavior because they don't want to be seen as disrespectful, or they keep pushing and expose themselves in front of everyone. You win without raising your voice or throwing a single verbal punch. This is exactly what Epictetus meant when he said you can't control other people's actions, but you can control what you consent to. You are withdrawing consent from disrespect. And once consent is gone, manipulation loses its grip. There's one crucial rule with this sentence. Do not over-explain it. Don't add a speech. Don't argue about why respect matters. The power is in its simplicity. It's a closed door. You don't debate with someone at a closed door. You decide whether it opens. When spoken calmly, this line forces a choice: respect or no access. And that quiet firmness is something manipulators don't know how to fight. Now let's talk about the fourth reply, and this one is about knowing when to stop. I'm not going to continue this conversation. This sentence is for the moment when something becomes painfully clear. The other person isn't listening anymore. They're not curious. They're not open. They're not trying to understand you. They're trying to win, and they're willing to sacrifice your time, your dignity, and your peace to do it. Most people ignore this moment. They keep talking because they want justice. They want to be understood. They want closure. They want the other person to finally get it. But here's the hard truth. You don't get clarity from someone who feeds on conflict. You don't get resolution from someone who enjoys pushing your buttons. This line is your exit. And it's powerful because of what it doesn't do. It's not aggressive. It's not dramatic. It's not apologetic. I'm not going to continue this conversation. It doesn't ask permission. It doesn't negotiate. It doesn't explain. It simply ends the exchange, questioning your choices, twisting your words, baiting you. You feel the tension rising in your chest. Your thoughts start speeding up. And you know deep down that if this goes on 5 more minutes, you're going to say something you'll regret. That awareness is your signal. You pause. You look at them calmly. And you say the line. Then you disengage. You step back. You stop feeding the fire. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself that no one could harm his inner world without his permission. This is what that looks like in real life. You're choosing not to give permission, not to the chaos, not to the provocation. Seneca wrote that the greatest power is power over yourself. Walking away from a toxic exchange is not weakness. It's leadership. You're leading your attention instead of letting it be hijacked. Because attention is a currency. Every minute you give to conflict is a payment. And when you pay chaos with your attention, the cost is always the same. Your peace. This sentence protects that peace. You're not storming out. You're not slamming doors. You're simply refusing to keep investing in something that has no return. And when you can end a conversation without anger, without explanation, without guilt, you demonstrate something rare. Self-mastery. That's not running away. That's choosing yourself. Reply 5. Stand your ground without starting a war. That's your view. I respect it, but I don't share it. This line is for disagreements with people you know and care about. Family, friends, co-workers. Situations where arguing would damage the relationship, but giving in would damage you. When you say this calmly, you do something powerful. You acknowledge the other person without surrendering your mind. You're not dismissing them. You're not attacking their beliefs. You're simply choosing not to adopt them. And that's why it works. There's nothing here to fight against. No insult. No emotional hook. No opening for pressure. You've shown respect, but you've also drawn a clear line. This is emotional independence in its simplest form. Stoicism teaches that freedom begins when you stop needing approval to feel secure. You can listen without obeying. You can disagree without disrespect. You can stay grounded, even when others push. Quiet, clear, unmovable. That's strength without conflict. Because the real power of these replies isn't just in the words themselves. It's in how you deliver them. The same sentence can feel strong or weak, depending on 3 things: your tone, your attitude, and your level of calm. When your voice is steady, your posture relaxed, and your emotions grounded, people feel it immediately. You're not trying to dominate. You're not trying to impress. You're centered, and that changes everything. Each of these replies has a clear purpose. The first one lowers the temperature. It cools the room and exposes the difference between noise and confidence. The second one reflects behavior without absorbing it, protecting your dignity without escalating the situation. The third one sets a minimum standard and makes respect non-negotiable. The fourth one protects your energy by ending conversations that no longer deserve your attention. And the fifth one allows you to stand firm without turning disagreement into conflict. But here's something just as important. You don't always need to say anything. Sometimes silence is stronger than the perfect sentence. Sometimes a pause communicates more authority than a reply. And sometimes the smartest response is simply walking away without announcing it. Stoicism was never about winning verbal battles. It was about choosing what deserves access to your inner world. When you stop reacting the way people expect, something interesting happens. The power dynamic shifts. The person who relied on pressure, volume, or manipulation suddenly loses their script. They don't know how to continue, because you're no longer playing your assigned role. Over time, people start measuring their words around you. Not because you became aggressive, but because you became harder to move. harder to provoke, harder to manipulate. You become someone with presence. Someone whose calm can't be purchased with chaos. Someone who doesn't need to explain themselves endlessly to feel secure. Your inner peace stops being something others can easily disrupt. That's the real result of practicing this. Not sharper comebacks, not louder confidence, but quiet authority. You learn that control doesn't come from overpowering others. It comes from mastering yourself, from choosing when to speak, when to stay silent, and when to walk away. And once you understand that your attention is your most valuable resource, you stop giving it to arguments that lead nowhere. You protect your energy. You protect your clarity. You protect your peace. That's not withdrawal from life. That's living it on your own terms. And in a world full of noise, that kind of calm becomes unmistakable. If this message resonated with you, don't let it stop here. Because this isn't just about words, arguments, or handling difficult people. This is about building a calm, unshakable inner strength in a noisy world that constantly tries to pull you off center. Every video here is designed to help you think more clearly, react less emotionally, and live with more control over your time, energy, and peace of mind. No hype, no yelling, just practical Stoic wisdom you can actually use in real life. If you want to become someone who's harder to manipulate, harder to provoke, and easier to respect, this channel is for you. So hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and stay with us. Because mastering yourself is the most powerful upgrade you can make.